Hi everybody, my name is Jimmy Carroll. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Tech B2B Marketing. I'm here on the Manufacturing Matters podcast. I have the pleasure of being joined by Fritz Carlson of Acme Manufacturing and my colleague Winn Hardin. Fritz, I want to thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it. For those who don't know out there, if you could give us a background on Acme Manufacturing, a historic company, you've been around for a while. If you could let us know what you guys do and what you do there, I think that would be helpful.
So our expertise is really in material removal, so it's grinding, polishing, buffing, and deburring.
Right.
We're really a machine tool builder by foundation. The company was founded in 1910 by my great-grandfather, so I'm generation 4.
Wow.
And I've been with the company, this will be my 40th year. And so we build material removal solutions, but we build special machinery too. Most of our business is now robotic systems, and we sell to about 20 industries globally. We have a company in Singapore that we started in 2019 that focuses mainly on aviation and the maintenance, repair, overhaul market. But we've sold equipment all over Asia, Europe, Brazil, and North America. And we've integrated close to 4,000 robot systems since 1987.
Is that aerospace application primarily paint removal?
It's all jet engine work.
Okay.
It's all jet engine components, which are very, very expensive castings and/or forgings that are typically titanium or Inconel. And so, it's great for ROI when you're dealing with high value parts. So we like to focus on very expensive parts, whether they get implanted in a human body or they go into a jet engine. That's where you see the best return on investments versus, very inexpensive parts like, consumer products, hand tools, stuff like that, which is, it's amazing how expensive some of the components are that go into a jet engine. I mean, probably one of the most expensive is probably about $750,000. So when you're working on a $750,000 part, the last thing you want to do is scrap it.
Right, I was going to say, waste really becomes a problem.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Is this a large part or is it just a highly complex part?
It's what they call it. It's called a blisk. It's one of the stages within a jet engine, and it can be several feet in diameter.
Okay.
And it's generally titanium or Inconel, and it's very, very expensive. So.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned earlier when we were talking really briefly right before the show, the biomed is really big for you guys.
Yeah, we do a lot in the medical device market. We do a lot of polishing on knee implants as well as hip implants, hip heads, hip cups, some shoulder domes. That's been a great industry for us, just because historically that would all be polished by hand. Mm-hmm. So you'd have a room full of hand polishers, and it was interesting is that one robot cell working 3 shifts a day will produce as many parts as what 18 people can do by hand.
Wow.
But the robot's going to do it much more, repeatably, much more accurately, and you're going to keep your unit cost as low as possible. Whereas when you do anything by hand, it's really up to each individual person how they do it. It's really an art.
Which probably even makes that labor gap even more difficult to fill, right?
Yeah, and the other thing today with, you've got a lot of people that were, like I'm a boomer, so you've got boomers that maybe were hand polishers for entire 30, 35 years, now they're retiring. Mm-hmm. So now you go to replace that person. Do you think you're going to find a Gen Z or millennial that wants to be a hand polisher? I would say you're not going to find one.
So it's going to be a hard ask.
Yeah, so it just drives automation.
Plus, in the biomed, you were saying, sorry to Jimmy, but the numbers are massive, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, there's 80 million baby boomers in the United States. Statistically, in your lifetime, you'll need at least 2 implants. That's only in the U.S. That's 160 million implants. And then you've got Latin America, you got Europe, you have Asia, and that's just a growing demographic.
Outstanding.
Yeah, so that's a great industry to be in.
Yeah.
The automation landscape is obviously constantly evolving and responding to customer needs. With you guys serving so many different industries, from medical to automotive to some of the other ones we talked about before, how do you guys go about responding to these customer needs, and how does that impact product development?
Well, generally, what we try and do is we try and develop tools, equipment that can be repurposed over a variety of industries. What we try to stay away from is what we call one and done. Mm-hmm. So you design something special once,
right?
But you can't sell. There's no market to sell it again, and so you never really get your engineering investment back. Whereas
that, or you have to charge the clients an astronomical amount.
Exactly. Versus if we can design a belt polishing head or a buffing head that we can use in medical, but we can use it in hand tools, and we can use it in plumbing, or we can use it in another industry. It's all about, in our business, the more you can repurpose existing engineering, the better your margins are, and the quicker we can get equipment to market, versus having to design something new all the time.
More cobots than traditional robots, or the other way around?
We've not, because of material removal and the dangers with just grinding and polishing and buffing, we have not been successful with cobots.
Okay.
So most of all the systems that we do are industrial robots, but
very different, difficult environment.
It's a very different environment, and so we have, up to this point, we have not had success trying to implement cobots. So our focus really is using industrial arms, and we use anything from a 7-kilogram arm up to a 2,300 kilogram arm, depending on the application.
Part of what you've heard over the years with cobots is that positional accuracy, right, and vibration dampening and things like that. So is that depending on the application?
For what we're doing, because there's so much compliance in the media that we use, whether it's a buffing wheel or whether it's coated abrasive, whether it's like non-woven, and then a lot of our finishing heads, we have compliance built into them.
Yeah.
The contact wheels have different durometers, different hardnesses. So there's a lot of things that compensate for having to be accurate.
Gotcha.
And even vibration. There's just so many things that you want to have as much compliance as possible, because in a lot of cases these parts are not very accurate, especially like the forgings and castings.
Right.
So you need to have, and the robot doesn't have eyes.
Right.
Whereas the human, that human is polishing, it can work the part, whereas the robot can't. Mm-hmm. So we need to include tools into our systems that will provide that compliance, so that the robot doesn't need vision.
Different ways to sense the part. And the diameter.
Yeah, we use all sorts of proc switches. We use lasers. We have a toolbox of options that we have, depending on, and it's really kind of tailored to the application.
Sure.
Yeah, that kind of ties into a question I wanted to ask you. Like, you have a unique position as your machine tooling company, but also an integrator, right? So there's a lot of technologies, maybe this is an obvious thing, but there's a lot of technologies that are kind of advancing in lockstep to solve new problems for the customers as automation demands grow. And are there any key examples that you can think of these technologies, like advancing your systems, adding new capabilities, making them faster, more accurate, things like that?
We definitely have. I mean, we developed a technology in Singapore in the last 3 years. We call it autopath generation, and it is a game changer. And right now we're trying to implement it with other applications that we sell at Acme, because what it does is it takes the need of a robot programmer away. The robot basically picks up a part, and in the MRO world, every part's different because they've been repaired. Mm-hmm. And just through a series of scanning moves that we do, we can create a perfect part program based on every single part that we run. Every single part is different. So it's absolutely, it's game changing. And we're working very feverishly right now to roll this out into other applications for other parts.
Is that using any AI deep learning in there? Or?
It is. It's using AI. It's using machine learning. And I'm fortunate that I have a very talented team at Acme that have, they're engineers, they're programmers, they understand process, they understand software, and you put all those people together, and it's pretty exciting what you end up with. And right now we're in the verge of, because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about ease of use.
Right.
And so the stuff, most of the systems that we've built over the last 30 some years,
a fraction of your company lifetime.
You can't like hire somebody off the street and say, okay, run this Acme robot cell. You have to train them.
Right.
And sometimes some of the stuff that we do is pretty complex. So really what we're pushing right now is we're trying to create solutions that are easier to use than they used to be. So any way that we can develop tools that can make the end user, make their experience better, that's what it's all about. And hopefully that, then people won't be afraid to implement. They say, well, it's complicated.
Right.
Well, it doesn't have to be complicated. So we are really, really pushing that initiative right now.
Right.
Ease of use is a term that's come up a lot, and again, perhaps it's an obvious one. Everything should be easier to use, right? But I personally see it as a big growth driver in automation adoption, and some of these figures you see from A3 or Interaction Analysis or some of these other companies. Has that been the case from your perspective?
I mean, based on the customer base that we have, and we've got some very sophisticated customers, but then we have some very unsophisticated customers that would be like mom and pop shops,
sure,
where they don't have a robot department, and so
all the machine shops.
The ease of use is really a big deal, because all of a sudden people first of all, if they can't hire people, they can't find people to hire. These smaller companies have no choice but to automate. So if they're going to automate, then you want to try and give them something that they can digest. It's easier to digest than something where you've got to try and go hire some real expert, programmers. And so we feel that that's really going to grow our business if we can introduce technology that's very, very sophisticated, but it's easier to use. And part of the problem that we have at Acme is we got a lot of really smart people that it's easy for them to do. Oh, I can set up that vision system, no problem. But it's like, okay, but you got to think about the person that's never picked up the teach pendant before.
Exactly.
I mean, I can tell you a story of a system we just put into Singapore in the last 12 months. And it has auto patch generation on it for repaired parts, so every part's different. And our managing director over there taught 2 polishers that had never picked up a teach pendant their entire life. They're in their 50s.
Right.
And within 2.5 weeks, they were trained. And within 30 days later, they had 40 part programs generated. And I actually visited the plant in September when I was over in Singapore. And these 2 operators were and they won an innovation award from their parent company.
Now they're
after being in production for 90 days.
Wow.
So these 2 guys were just, after being apprehensive because they had never worked on a robot before.
Right.
We basically gave them enough training, and now that machine just runs.
They're just jamming.
You walk out, it's the best feeling for an integrator when you walk out on a customer's shop floor and that machine is just producing parts.
Coming away.
That's all you can ask for.
So if we could peel back the layers, is that mainly, when we talk about ease of use, we're probably talking about smarter, easier to use software? I mean, is the solution software so it's portable, or is it training? Is it HMIs?
It's all the above.
Right.
I mean, it's software, it's devices that we use in conjunction with the software, and and there's not like one size fits all. Mm-hmm. It's really going to be application dependent. Whether we're polishing the airfoils for a jet engine, or we're polishing these large airfoils for power generator. Mm-hmm. The tools will vary, but the methodology for how we're trying to create the program so that sometimes what people run into is, and they buy a system They want to program a bunch of parts. Well, you got to take the cell down, which means that you're not running production.
Right.
So that cell could be down for months while you're programming. So our whole thing now is, how do we speed up the programming process? Because that is like that's the pain point. Mm-hmm. So we're working really hard to try and reduce that pain point. So it's the technology is easier to adopt, plus you start your ROI quicker.
Right. Is that better simulators, or is it?
We use simulation. I mean, when we look at an application before we even quote it, we put it into a 3D world. Because we need to convince ourselves what we're proposing. Can the robot reach? Can it pick up this part? Can it take it to this grinding head?
Yeah.
So we do so much upfront engineering so that typically when we're submitting a quote, we've almost pre-engineered it, but we know it's going to work.
Does this like fall under digital twinning per se? Or
Yes.
Is that, okay.
Yeah. So we're working on digital twinning too. But when you get back to, people come to us because of our knowledge, our know-how on material removal. And so they bring us an application, and then they give us a production rate. They tell us this is a raw part, this is a finished part. I've got this much time to do it. I've got this finish to do. I get this tolerance to hold. Mm-hmm. And then we just collectively
bring up the solution.
Figure out okay, and because we've done so many systems, we try and think about something we've already got engineered. And maybe we've got to change the gripper, or we got to put a head in it or something, but it's far better when you've got something you've already engineered in the past versus having to, start out with a clean sheet of paper and create something new every time.
Fritz, I want to ask about, you guys have such a unique perspective because you work across so many different industries, you were telling us. What are you noticing any particular trends that are kind of picking up even across different industries in terms of customer requests or things that you've been installing?
Well, I mean, there's this huge labor shortage, and it's not just in the United States.
No,
it's global. And so when you look at the largest industrial robot market in the world, it's China. China has a huge aging population. And the young people today don't want to go work in factories. They want to have a nice job and work for Google or Microsoft. I mean, they don't want to work in a factory.
Just like kids everywhere around the world.
So this is a global challenge. It's not just a challenge in the U.S., but if you, depending on the kind of business that you're in, if you want, how do you grow your business without trying to hire labor that's not there? Well, you do it with automation.
Right.
Now, you still need to have people to manage the automation, but quite honestly, those are pretty good paying jobs.
Those are the jobs those kids want.
Yeah.
Or the new general
I look at what we pay some of our very skilled programmers that basically, high school education, didn't go to college, but they've been working for us for 20 years and they understand what we do, and it's like, you just don't hire people off the street like that.
Right.
It takes time to develop, most people. And so, but labor shortage is huge. And with this initiative that the reshoring, where companies are now bringing, their manufacturing back from Asia. So you look at Canada, you look at the United States, you look at Mexico. I mean, I think Mexico is really probably going to be the next big China, and it's in our backyard. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about logistics and work in process on shifts and stuff like that. But it's just with this, hopefully the government continues to promote companies to bring all this manufacturing back, because manufacturing creates a lot of wealth, creates a lot of good paying jobs. Again, one of the challenges is just this labor shortage. That it's not only in the United States.
No, I mean that would really help everyone in our hemisphere. I mean, if you think about it, if the U.S., if Mexico can benefit from, and some of the South American countries can benefit from where the United States is now, and everyone will benefit from that, and we don't have to worry about cargo ships and shipping containers as much.
Well, you think about what sort of pollution does a cargo ship emit, going from Shanghai to LA.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And ships are not the cleanest conveyance mechanisms. I've spent plenty of time on them.
The other thing is when they, years ago, people, the media would say, hey, robots steal jobs.
Yeah.
They take jobs from people. It's like, they're doing jobs that people don't want. And so...
And creating jobs that are better paying that they do want.
That is such a fallacy. Plus, do you want to be a hand grinder and a foundry? The 3 Ds, dirty, dangerous, and demeaning. That's what we talk about all the time. But it's like, a human doesn't want to do that job. Let a robot do it.
Yep.
It's not taking the human job. It's allowing that human to have a better job.
Manage the work cells.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure the production stays.
So...
it's kind of like, COVID really highlighted the importance of automation. And then as a result, like automation adoption surged afterwards. But really, I think it just sort of exacerbated it. Like it was trending towards this way anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like it seemed like automation was ripe for growth anyway. And now, like you used the phrase earlier, when like now maybe this last year and this year might be a slight deep breath in while things ramp back up. But automation is only going to continue to become more important.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the manufacturing business today, the only way for you really to be competitive is you're going to have to automate as many things as possible, because to throw labor at them, labor's not cheap.
No.
No,
and it's not a long-term solution. And the next, black swan event that comes along, your supply chain's in the toilet doing the swirl, and it's not a good thing.
And when you look at ROI, I mean, a lot of companies have different requirements. Some are like 12 months, some are 24, some are 36, but it also depends on the business that they're in. And we have technology that ROI is 12 months, in some cases it's 6 months, in other cases it's 3 years. But if that company's going to be producing the same product for 10 years, they have a 10-year contract, like some of these foundries.
Yeah. That's an easy
three-year
sell.
payback's not a big deal, because after the third year, the equipment's paid for itself, and now the next 7 years, you're printing money.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fritz, what else haven't we asked about today that you're passionate about?
What's coming? What's Acme going to knock our socks off? Are you going to push those simulators out into the public space?
Well,
we've
been a FANUC integrator since 1987, so we've got a very long relationship with FANUC, and so we use a lot of their products. We use their simulation software. We actually resell it to our customers so they can do their own offline programming.
Right.
I'm trying to think what else it's going to say. Anyway.
So you're just making some of those tools available to the public.
I mean, and then as we develop our own programming methods, we will be offering that up to our customer base, because that's everybody's pain point. It's like, well, I want to add another part, but it's going to take a month to get the program done, and it's like, okay, but so there are things that we're doing at Acme to help support that customer, where we can do some of the programming at Acme and then just download the programs to them.
Oh, no kidding.
And they load it. Yeah, we're doing that right now in Mexico with a large project that we're doing.
Is that primarily like a service, a secondary service for you guys? Okay.
It's a service, and it's a service that's going to be growing more and more in the future, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, like if we have equipment like in Singapore, I mean, we do a lot of remote troubleshooting. Mm-hmm. We do troubleshooting in Brazil. We do troubleshooting in Europe, and versus having to put somebody on a plane and fly over there. I mean, it's kind of the way of where everything's going right now is remote troubleshooting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that, because we already travel enough.
Yeah. Well, I can attest to that. I have way too many miles.
I bet, especially in your position,
Fritz, if people want to learn more about Acme Manufacturing, what's the website?
The website is just acmemanufacturing.com. So it's acmemfg.com, and we're celebrating our 114th year in March. I'm celebrating my 40th year at the company, which will be like in July, and my admin of 35 years just retired like 10 10 days ago.
Yeah.
And we had a lunch for her, and we invited, I think, 5 or 6 retired Acme employees, and sitting at that table with her is about 230 years of experience.
Wow.
Not including my VP of sales and myself, which we have 80. So, it's very interesting to run a family business that's been able to survive as long as we have, which, we've survived 2 pandemics. We've survived probably 16 recessions.
Right.
And we're still here.
We got a 5th generation in the wing.
We have a 5th generation in the wings, yep.
All right.
And, if you look at stats on family businesses, generally after the fourth generation, if you can survive to the 4th generation, there are no statistics.
Yes, it's very difficult. Usually the 3rd is where you start to see. So you guys are definitely.
We're working with a new customer right now that's generation 6 and 7.
Wow.
They were making products when Abraham Lincoln was the president. They're getting ready to buy their first robot cell from us this week.
Outstanding.
We're working with the father and the daughter.
Bringing the old school.
But we work with about probably 7 or 8 family-owned businesses in the U.S. that are all over 100 years old.
That's cool.
A variety of industries. So,
well, we'll be sure to send a birthday card this year.
I think, March 23rd.
Yeah. All right. If there's a luncheon, we want to get a
no problem.
text us an email invitation.
No problem.
Love to come see the facility sometime. Where's home?
We're in Auburn. Our main facility. We have 2 facilities in Auburn Hills, Michigan.
Okay. Right around the corner.
And then we have this innovation center in Singapore, which is pretty much just a R&D center.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Look forward to visiting out there sometime soon.
No, anytime. You're welcome.
Fritz, really appreciate the time.
Thank
for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you.
And this is the Manufacturing Matters podcast. Everyone, thanks for watching. Manufacturing-matters.com. If you have questions, comments, or would like to join us, and thanks again for watching.
Till the next episode.